When I was 5 years old, I went to my mother's sister's house to school because there was no school in my village. So when I went there, when I was 8, the son started sleeping with me. Then when the sister caught him, the sister then reported him to the father. Then the father scolded at him, and that was when the father started.
She left home full of hope, a hope for a bright and better future. Leaving her family behind must have been hard, but then the promise of a better life must have made her heart glad, even if it meant she would not see her parents every day. In a small town in Benue State, a young girl's dream for education led her into the hands of people who were supposed to protect her. Her name was Ochanya Ogbanje. She was only 13 years old. What happened to her broke the hearts of millions and exposed the deep cracks in Nigeria's system of justice and child protection. Ochanya Ogbanje came from a humble family in Ogbadibo local government area of Benue State. She was bright, cheerful, and full of promise. Her parents wanted the best for her, but like many rural families in Nigeria, they faced hardship and limited access to quality education. When an opportunity came for her to live with relatives in Makurdi, the state capital, they agreed. They believed that the Ogbuja family, respected and educated, would take care of their daughter and support her schooling. It was supposed to be a chance for a better future. But instead of finding safety, Ochanya walked into years of pain. Speaking on why she left home to stay with that family, her sister has this to say.
The case of Ochanya is a case of bad governance and trust and betrayal. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Ochanya left home because there was no primary school in the community where I'm from, where she's also from. Up until date, there is no primary school in that community as we speak.
Reports later revealed that from the age of 7, she was repeatedly abused by her guardian, Andrew Ogbuja, a senior lecturer at the Benue State Polytechnic, and his son, Victor. For years, the abuse went on in silence. Inside the house where she should have been safe, Ochanya lived with fear, shame, and confusion. She could not speak out. The people she depended on for protection were the very ones destroying her innocence. By the time she reached her teenage years, the effects of the constant assault had devastated her young body. She developed a medical condition called vesico-vaginal fistula, a painful injury that causes uncontrollable leakage and infection.
September, when I went to school, I was not feeling fine, so I came back home. I went to Federal Medical Center in Makurdi here. I spent 2 months and 5 days there, so they discharged us.
This condition, often seen in victims of prolonged sexual violence or difficult childbirth, became the physical proof of the horror she had endured. Her health deteriorated rapidly, and she was eventually admitted to the Federal Medical Center in Makurdi. Despite medical efforts, her body could no longer endure the pain. In October 2018, Ochanya Ogbanje died. She was only 13. News of her death spread quickly across Benue and throughout Nigeria. The story of a little girl abused to death by her guardians shocked the nation. On social media, Nigerians expressed outrage. The hashtag Justice for Ochanya flooded timelines. Activists, students, women's groups, and human rights organizations demanded accountability. The National Human Rights Commission took an interest. Churches, schools, and communities held vigils. A child had died, and this time the country refused to look away. As the protests grew louder, the Benue State government filed charges against the alleged perpetrators. Andrew Ogbuja and his son Victor were accused of rape and culpable homicide. The charges seemed like a step towards justice. Nigerians believed that at last the system would stand for the voiceless. But justice in Nigeria often moves slowly. The case dragged on for years. Court hearings were postponed, witnesses disappeared, and public attention began to waver. Victor, the son, reportedly went into hiding and was declared wanted. Andrew, the father, continued to appear in court, maintaining his innocence. During this time, civil society groups continued to push. The Justice for Ochanya movement became more than just a trending hashtag, it became a symbol of resistance against sexual violence and the silence that often follows it. People began to speak up about their own experiences, inspired by a girl who never got the chance to speak for herself. After years of legal delays, the long-awaited verdict came in April 2022. The court acquitted Andrew Ogbuja, ruling that the prosecution had failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. His wife, Felicia Ogbuja, who had been accused of negligence for failing to protect the girl placed in her care, was found guilty and sentenced. But to many Nigerians, that outcome felt hollow. The man accused of directly abusing Ochanyas walked free, while his wife's lesser conviction could not erase the sense of injustice that hung over the case. For Ochanya's family, the verdict reopened wounds that had never healed. Her mother wept as she told reporters that all she wanted was justice for her daughter. Activists described the judgment as another example of how the system fails victims of gender-based violence. They argued that weak investigations, lack of forensic evidence, and intimidation of witnesses had once again robbed a victim of her day in court. Just when it seemed her story had faded into silence, Ochanya's spirit rose again like a phoenix. Her pain transformed into a cry for justice echoing across the nation as thousands on social media pleaded for her case to be reopened and for those accused to answer for their crimes. The public anger that followed the acquittal reignited national debate on Nigeria's laws regarding sexual violence. Many pointed to the gaps in enforcement of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, known as the VAP Act. Although it was enacted in 2015, several states had still not domesticated it at the time of Ochanya's death. That meant protection and prosecution depended largely on where a victim lived, not on the law itself. The Ochanya case also exposed the deep stigma surrounding sexual abuse in Nigerian society. Victims are often shamed into silence, families pressured to settle matters privately, and institutions prefer to protect reputations rather than children. In many communities, speaking out against a respected person, especially a man of status, can lead to isolation and victim blaming. Ochanya's case forced Nigerians to confront these uncomfortable truths. Her story became a rallying point for reform. Civil organizations launched new campaigns for child protection laws. Schools began awareness programs on sexual abuse. Churches and media houses started conversations that had long been avoided. Even the National Human Rights Commission renewed efforts to push for stronger enforcement of child rights. But for many, these changes came too late for Ochanya. She was a girl who loved to learn. Classmates remembered her as quiet, polite, and always smiling. Teachers described her as brilliant, with a curiosity that lit up the classroom. Her life was just beginning, and in a country where millions of children face similar risks, her death became both a tragedy and a warning. Every year, thousands of Nigerian children suffer sexual abuse. Many never report it. Some do not survive. For every Ochanya whose name is remembered, countless others remain invisible, trapped in silence, afraid that no one will believe them. The system that failed her continues to fail others through slow justice, poor investigation, and social stigma. Justice for Ochanya is not just about punishing her abusers. It is about changing a culture that allows abuse to thrive. It is about parents teaching their children to speak out. It is about schools creating safe spaces. It is about police taking reports seriously and prosecutors doing their jobs without fear or favor. It is about government institutions providing medical and psychological support for survivors. It is about ensuring that no child has to suffer in silence ever again. Even in death, Ochanya's story continues to speak. It reminds us that justice is not just a legal process, it is a moral duty. Her name has become a symbol of resilience and advocacy. Human rights groups continue to honor her memory through campaigns, scholarships, and child protection projects. Her story is now told in classrooms, seminars, and media discussions as an example of what must never happen again. The pain of her family can never truly be measured, but their courage to speak out has changed how Nigeria talks about sexual violence. Because of Ochanya, more victims now find the strength to tell their stories. Because of Ochanya, more parents are alert to signs of abuse. Because of Ochanya, the call for reform has reached places it never had before. She was just 13 years old when she died, yet her name lives on, not as a statistic, but as a voice that challenges us to build a society where children are safe, where justice is not delayed, and where silence is never an option. Ochanya's voice may be silent, but her story continues to speak. It speaks for every child who cannot defend themselves. It calls on every adult to act, to protect, to care. And it reminds an entire nation that justice delayed is justice denied. May her memory light the path toward a safer, more compassionate Nigeria. Justice for Ochanya. End child abuse. End silence.